What was it that really made you different than everybody else that was selling windows?
I stopped listening to the corporate sales training. When I pulled up to a house, for example, I would say, I'm here to help the person. I would actually tell myself that. I'm here to help them. I'm not here to sell them windows. Yeah, so I've been in sales almost 30 years. But the last 15 years, I wound up at Andersen Windows. I sold Renewal by Andersen, which was pretty high-end window product. And I was their #1 sales rep for about a decade. And I'm a writer at heart. And so in 2018, I decided to write a book about kind of the things that I was doing that made me more successful than the rest of the team.
Were you immediately comfortable kind of posting that content?
One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was progress over perfection.
Right.
Because you want that video to be perfect. And you know what? Nobody cares.
All right, Allan, wanted to thank you again for taking some time to chat with us today. And I wanted to start just by diving in a little bit, tell us what you do, and then kind of I want to take a step back and look at the journey that got you there.
Sure. Well, right now I have my own company, a consulting company called the 7 Secret Sales Academy. And I teach people to sell better, teach companies to sell more, to up their selling game. And most of the companies I work with are small to medium size companies in the construction remodeling space, people who actually speak to homeowners quite often, financial people. I've done plenty of B2B, but my wheelhouse is really the B2C sale, sitting down in front of a couple and talking about whatever they need, whatever they're thinking about buying. So that's what I've been doing. I also go into companies and do, I call it my hybrid training model, where I will spend 2 or 3 days with that company and their sales team, and then follow that up with weekly virtual trainings to make everything stick. So that's pretty much what I do in a nutshell.
And how did you get to that? Did you do sales before? Were you working for a remodeling company? How did that start?
Yeah. So I've been in sales almost 30 years. Majority of it was in-home sales. I've sold for general contractors. I've sold for Home Depot. I used to sell windows, siding, and roofing for Home Depot. But the last 15 years, I wound up at Andersen Windows. I sold Renewal by Andersen, which was pretty high-end window product. And I was their #1 sales rep for about a decade. And I'm a writer at heart. And so in 2018, I decided to write a book about kind of the things that I was doing that made me more successful than the rest of the team, and published the book. The book became a bestseller, to my surprise, and that's when people started asking me to do speaking engagements and training gigs and things like that. So it sort of was like I didn't write the book to start my own company. I wrote the book because I love to write, and I wanted to kind of put on paper what I was doing. But it was great timing, because after 25 years of selling, I was looking for the next chapter of what I wanted to do, and this just presented itself, and I've loved every second of it. So
no, that's a cool way that opportunity presented itself. And I guess without summarizing the book too much, I want to hear in your word, what was it that really made you different than everybody else that was selling windows?
I stopped listening to the corporate sales training.
Well, and that's what stands out to me is like, in part of your book, you talk about like not using a sales pitch. Like, what does that mean to you when you say, I'm not going to use a sales pitch?
Let me take a step back for a second. So I don't want to say that corporate sales training is a bad thing, because when you have a company or a large corporation, you need to have a process. You need to have something to send your people through. The problem with sales training over the years and decades has been that it's all about the company and the sales rep, and here's a pitch and here's what you're supposed to do in this sequential order, and then you're supposed to close. But the concept of, if we have a team that closes 30% of the people that they see, we're gonna that will leave us in a profitable margin. Okay, here's the problem with that. 30% is not a success rate. It's a 70% failure rate. Right. If you see 100 people and 70 of them tell you no, I can't see any way how that's successful. But that's how the corporate mentality is we're gonna train a team that if they close 30%, we're gonna be fine. And they forget about the 70% of the people that they pissed off, or they did something where they're like, oh my God, this company's terrible. So I started doing the opposite. I went in and said, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to solve your problem. It's really not rocket science, but I'm here to help you instead of sell you. And that was the foundation of the book is don't approach a sales conversation to sell anything. Approach it to help somebody, and you'll be surprised on how much more you'll sell when you have that approach. If you don't sell it, it's okay. And most sales reps aren't, they're trained to like, oh my God, I didn't sell this one. What did I do wrong? And obviously you want to do some self-evaluation, but you have to change your mindset from the very beginning to like, I'm here to help Jordan today, figure out what his problems are, listen to him, understand it. And then if he gives me permission to talk about some solutions, that's good. If not, no big deal. I move on to the next one.
How do you change that mindset? Maybe it was kind of you naturally, but especially when we think about training our team or training other salespeople, how do you start to get them to think in those terms and against the idea of, hey, always close or always do this? You know what I mean?
Well, again, it's let me come into this. When I first started doing this, I would always, when I pulled up to a house, for example, I would say, I'm here to help the person. I would actually tell myself that I'm here to help them. I'm not here to sell them windows. And it just worked. It just was a very quick shift, and it turned the sales presentation into a sales conversation, which is a big difference, because so many like, for example, when you're in a sales conversation, and so many reps do this, and I'm talking to you, Jordan, I'm trying to sell you, let's say you have a drafty living room. Right away, I'm going to say, a typical sales rep, well, we've got a window. Look at this window. Look how great it goes up and down. It has this glass. It's all this energy, blah, 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 features and benefits, rather than actually asking, listening, and understanding more about your problem. You say you have a drafty living room. Tell me more about that, Jordan. You ask an open-ended question. Then when I sit on this couch right here, it's very drafty. That one's not as drafty. By the way, my daughter's bedroom is drafty. Oh, really? Explain more about how she's feeling. And then all of a sudden, instead of me just pitching you and selling you the solution to your problem immediately, I'm asking more questions, and you feel listened to and heard and understood. And then by the time I'm done asking these really deeper questions, open-ended questions, you're going to be like, all right, this is great. This guy's listening to me. He's not a typical sales guy. Now you give me permission to sell you. You know what? I think I have a solution for your problem. Would you like to see it? Yeah, absolutely. Here, let me show you this window. And it's just a different approach to it, rather than immediately selling. And that's what most reps do. They hear the problem. Great. Here's my solution. Do you want to buy it? And that's why they close 30%.
You also talk about the art of inherent human behavior. Is that what you're talking about, where it's like someone's going to be closed off when they get presented with that typical sales pitch or that typical presentation, and you'd rather keep it open-ended and let them explain the problem so that they feel comfortable enough with you first?
Yeah, that's part of it. So the art of inherent human behavior, what I mean by that that phrase is, the human brain works a very certain way, very specific way, with body language and with how we are influenced by certain things. It's pretty much universal. There's the outliers, the sociopaths of the world and stuff, but for the most part, for example, reciprocation is one of the most powerful pillars of influence that is out there. If I buy you a beer, unless you're a sociopath, you're going to buy me a beer for the next round. It's reciprocation. If I send you a Christmas card, you're going to turn around and say, oh crap, I never sent Allan a Christmas card. I better send him one. It's the power of reciprocation. That's how the brain works. That's just one example. Social proof is another example. We want to be a tribe animal. We want to do things that other people like us have done. So once I started realizing I was actually using these theories of influence and persuasion, I started really getting into it. And like, how can I take advantage? This is not unethical. It's just, if this is how the brain works, how can I take advantage of this? All right, let me use social proof more. Let me use reciprocation. Let me work on some of these pillars of influence. And it's the psychology of selling. And that's where, when the sales rep realizes that they're behind the eight ball, that the person doesn't want to meet with them, even though they need their product, they don't want to meet with a salesperson, you start to lower those walls by tapping into how the brain works and making them feel comfortable.
Should we be, and maybe priming is not the right word, but when we think about our our lead magnets, or our kind of our social media marketing campaigns, or just our brand in general.
Hmm.
Should that content lead them into that not sales pitch, but that way that we're going to go about, talking to them about a solution? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense because that's where organic social media really works as a long play. Because if you just go out there and you just start, and this has been proven by so many studies, like if you start posting just what you sell, hey,
Right.
I sell windows and I do this, you'll get some hits because people actually, are really in need of a window. But if you start posting educational, entertaining stuff first, and you start to establish yourself as the expert, that's when conversations will start. Then you get it, then you start engaging with your community. So, like, for example, when I first started this, I sort of was on the runway in 2019. I had 8 speaking engagements scheduled. 6 of them were paid, and I was thinking by the end of 2019, early 2020, I'd be able to stop selling windows and do this. And then a little thing called COVID happened in 2020, and messed up everybody's
Yeah.
world, including mine. So, but in retrospect, it was a good thing for me because I wasn't really living online yet. I was kind of doing everything offline, and it forced me to create my brand.
Hmm.
It forced me to get on LinkedIn. I had 64 contacts on LinkedIn when I started this, and now I have over 13,000. Didn't have a TikTok account, didn't have an Instagram account. So it forced me to start all these things. And then I learned, okay, hey, instead of posting, hey, I'm a sales coach, do you need help? Because nobody listens to those posts.
Right.
I started just posting valuable content. I just would give tips about pricing and presentation and whatever it was. And you start becoming the expert, and then people start to reach out in a conversational way. And the key is for people listening who are doing their social media, add value, post value, but then engage. A lot of mistakes that people do is like they'll post something and they'll get 25 likes, but then they won't say thanks for the like. They just get the like, oh, I got likes, and then they leave it. You actually, that's someone saying, hey, I like your stuff. They're going to be okay with you reaching out and saying thank you, because that might start a conversation. Oh, you know what? By the way, how much do you charge for coaching? And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden the conversation starts. So you can, it's hand in hand. Post valuable stuff that people are going to want to listen to, but then engage once they like it.
How did you, were you, I guess, were you immediately comfortable kind of posting that content? Because I know the thing for myself included, a lot of people, is that imposter syndrome, right? Like, how do I know what I'm putting out there is actually valuable, or is it just a process of start with something and use that feedback to see, what your audience actually is getting, something out of?
Oh yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I start when anyone starts this, it's hard, Eh, and one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was progress over perfection,
All right.
because you want that video to be perfect. And you know what? Nobody cares. In fact, videos that are less than perfect or have little imperfections in them are actually rated higher than the ones the highly produced ones that you do 3 or 4 or 5 times over.
Hmm.
I've gotten to the point now where I can literally pick up my phone and do a minute or 2 minute video and post it within 5 minutes and not even worry about what it looked like,
Wow.
because it's just me talking and it doesn't bother me anymore. But 4 years ago, when I would I get my lights ready, I'd do this, I would take 15 takes, I'd drive myself crazy for a 60-second TikTok video. And
Right.
now it's just like, let's just post it. And people really appreciate you just getting out there and sharing your knowledge. And some of the highest rated ones are like the behind the scenes ones where you're actually doing something and you film yourself. This is me working on my webpage. It's silly stuff, posting a picture or video of me sitting in my coffee shop in town. Those get a lot of views because people want to know you as a person. They don't want to see a polished professional video. They just want to see you on a day-to-day stuff. And this guy wow, this guy's really good. He comes up with some good value. Look at him. He's sitting in his coffee shop. He's a regular guy. And you just build that type of approachable brand that way.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And you're right. I think it's that, you know, you kind of have to build the momentum of doing it there in the beginning, even if it is, overcomplicated and you're thinking too much about it. Actually going through the motions of doing it is what's going to build the momentum to kind of keep it going.
Yeah, I always say, do a Nike, just do it. Just do it. Don't worry about it. Post it. Trust me, No one's gonna, if you have a video that has a little bit of bad lighting, or you make a mistake saying something, just post it. It doesn't matter. The posting is what matters.
Are you using a lot of written content since you said you're kind of a writer by trade? Like that's what you're kind of passionate about. Do you use a lot of written content?
You know, like the shoemakers kids have no shoes. I'm the worst. I would love to have a consistent blog. I have 4 or
Yeah.
5 or 6 blogs on my website, but I should be posting more. Absolutely. My writing is a lot of helping customers with their copy, with their web pages. See, the great thing is, and here's another kind of tip I'll give people starting out, definitely niche down. You can't help anybody. One of the biggest mistakes I made, I spent a year saying I'm a sales coach, and if you sell something, I can help you sell it more. I can help you sell it better. But I had no target market. I was just like, hey, you sell something, I can help you. And I didn't sell anything. And I realized, well, my wheelhouse is in the remodeling and the construction industry. Let me start focusing on that. And that's when the customers started to come. But also, what you do should be niche down. Don't say I'm the jack of all trades or I can help you do anything. You know, the beginning name of my company was the 7 Secrets Center for Sales and Marketing, because I eventually help people with their marketing. But you know what? No one was hiring me for marketing, and I didn't need that in my title. People were hiring me to help them sell more and their team sell more. But then once I start working with them, I realized, like, you know, your web page copy is really bad. It needs to be fixed. So then I start working on their email funnels and on their web page copy and on whatever it is. I'll write some blogs for people. But I don't lead with that. I lead with something very specific, sales
Right.
training and coaching, and a specific audience. And even though I'm niching down my audience, I still get inquiries from other companies. It's just that if you try to do the, you know, the cast a broad net, you're just gonna, too many fish are gonna sneak through. So
So you do still get clients and people reaching out that are outside of that niche spectrum.
yeah, because like say I'll post something about, I don't know, how to prepare a customer for a price.
Right.
You know, that applies to almost every industry. So even though I'm specifically going after my niche target audience, someone from, I don't know, SaaS company may call me and say, hey, I've got 5 guys who are really struggling with presenting their price to customers, and because he saw that post that I did, he reaches out and asks for help. So
What was there an impetus or a something that kind of sparked the idea to write the book initially, or was it just that something you always wanted to do and it was just, well, this is what I'm good at, so I'm going to put pen to paper and make it about this?
no, there was an impetus. So it's if I have time, I'll tell a quick story.
Of
So
course.
the book was in my head. I love to write. I have 100 short stories, working on a novel. I love to write. But the concept of, you know, I want to write a business book to about sales and what I'm doing and what's making me successful. But, you know, I had an outline and I didn't have you know, I was just like, once every 3 months I'd sit down and it was just, there was no schedule or anything. It was just like kind of there. And one day I go into the office. Now there were 88 sales reps at this point at the dealership, just at the dealership that I worked at. And I had been the top guy there for a long time. And I was off on this particular Friday. I went in to pick something up and my boss was sitting there, and just like a typical company, they had this sales war room where all the sales guys have their sales meeting. And in the front of the room, they always had the big board, you know, number 1 guy all the way down to the bottom guys. And I looked at the number 87 and 88 were these 2 young guys who just started, and they were closing under 20%. So I went to my boss and I said to him, I got nothing to do today. Do you want me to run with these 2 guys? I'll run with them, see what they're doing. Maybe I can help them out. And he said to me, no, I don't want you to go near them. You're going to mess them up. Now think about this for a minute. I'm on the top of the board closing 65%. They're closing 18%. I'm offering help, and the boss says, no, I'm going to mess them up. He said, they need to learn the process. You're a field sales guy. He said, what you do can't be taught. And I said, oh, really? First of all, it's ludicrous that you think I would mess them up, because how much worse can they possibly get? They're barely selling anything. So that was sort of like my impetus. It was like, you know what? I'm going to prove to you that what I do can be taught. And that's when I sat down and I really started, mind mapping the book and everything. And then that January of 2018, which was about 3 months later, I walked into this coffee shop in East Greenwich, Rhode Island. It was January 3rd. 2017 was a crappy year for me. I actually finished second. There was one other guy that beat me that year, the first time in many years. So I was like upset about that. And I walk into this brand new coffee shop, never been there before, had a really good vibe. And on the counter, she had this wooden box and all these black cards in there, and they were called cue cards. It was 300 cards. So I reach in, and what they were like these prompt cards that you see. It was like, what was the last nicest thing you did? When was the last time you called your mother? You know, kind of these cards you'd pick up and it would give you like a prompt. Well, I reach into this sea of cards and I pull it out, and it said, what would you like your legacy to be?
Mm.
And right there, I said, you know what? I'm writing my book and I'm starting today. And I sat down at that table. I called my boss. I said, I'm taking every morning off for the rest of the year. I'm not running any 10 o'clock appointments. After he passed out and came back to life, he supported me. And I sat in that coffee shop every day for the next 6 months and I wrote my book.
Wow.
And it was finished. It started January 3rd and I finished it May 31st. And then it was published the following year.
Did you have any help from like other copywriters, or was it just you doing it and then you reaching out to the publisher? Did you do it all yourself?
I did it all myself. And then the best thing that I did was I scheduled it. So I was very, very deliberate, and I was writing every single day. I took Sundays off, but I wrote every single day. And that's the only way you get the book done.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you get 1 page done or 10 pages, you're making progress. And then I hired a copy editor who took care of the how it sounded, you know, editing the stuff out of it, and then an actual editor to do the grammar and the spelling and all of that kind of stuff. So once I did that, I had 2 offers from publishers, which were really awful. There was like 10 cents for royalties. They were really bad deals. So I just published it myself, and I've sold over 15,000 copies myself. So for a self-published author, that I hear that's like in the top 2%. So, and that's why it became a bestseller. It was really selling quite a bit when it showed up on Amazon.
Has anything happened from writing this book and from publishing it that you didn't expect? Like, I know that you wanted to do it, you always wanted to write, but has there been things come about or stories from people that have read it that kind of surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten great reviews. I even have this on my LinkedIn profile. One guy wrote me a really nice note. He said, my book changed his life. He said, I was ready to quit sales. I was terrible at it. I read your book, and now I'm one of the top guys, and my family is enjoying me making a lot of money. I was able to take a vacation with my kids for the first time in 10 years. And he said, it's because of your book. So when I get something like that, that just gives me chills. Like that is, you know, it's helped people. And the thing what I really love about what I do is, yep, the money's good, the money's great sometimes, but I don't sit here and do it for the money. I really get jazzed up when someone like that sends me a note, or a company says, our sales have been up 35% since you gave us our training. That stuff gets me out of bed. That's the stuff that I really love, because I just want companies to succeed. And I know how hard it is to be a sales rep. I know the stress that's involved, especially most of these in-home sales reps are commission only. That's not an easy gig. And I want to be there to support them and show them that it can be easier, because, you know, you're closing 30% and you're stressing every month because of how you've been trained, and it's not your fault. And you know, you just do these other things that'll help you. And even if you go to 35 or 40%, that's a significant jump in income just by doing that.
Well, it has to be fulfilling to show people that they can find success in a way that's not this mainstream or this corporate agenda way. Like, you can actually be authentic with people and still find even more success. And you're the one that's teaching them that.
Yeah, I mean, I think sales is a great profession, but you know what? Go find me a sales, master's degree in sales. It doesn't exist. Some of the richest people in the world are salespeople, because they're good at it and they help people. And those are the ones that really, they're not out there to rip people off and worry about their commission check. They're genuinely trying to help people, and they make a lot of money doing it, and they should, because they should be rewarded for it. But I try to tell people that sales is not a 4-letter word. It's a great profession. Don't feel bad about it. I mean, even myself, when I first got into sales, and my friend, this is in the book, my friend told me, why don't you be a salesman? And I even said a salesman. Who the hell wants to be a salesman? That was 25 years ago. That's the perception. Like nobody likes
Right.
salespeople. Nobody wants to be a salesperson. If you're a salesperson and you like, you're at a picnic, what do you do for a living? Oh, you kind of like skirt around it. You don't say I'm in sales with pride. You have pride. You should be proud of it. And that's what I want salespeople to realize, that it's a great profession. And if you do it right, where you feel good about it, it doesn't get any better than that.
What were you doing before the sales? What was your job?
I
What was
was
this?
in marketing and public relations for college athletics. So I worked for Montclair State University in New Jersey, and then I was actually the associate athletic director at Columbia University in New York City.
Were you into sports when you were younger?
Yeah, I was into sports. I actually wanted to be a sports writer. That's
Okay.
that's why I went to Rutgers, and I was a journalism major. I minored in physical education. I'm like, I'm going to be a sports writer. And I got the opportunity to be a sports writer when I was a junior for a real newspaper, and I actually didn't like it. I love the writing, but back then in the 80s, the smoky newsrooms that you used to see on the old TV shows, those existed, and I was in
Right.
the newsrooms filled with smoke, and it was just disgusting for until like 3 o'clock in the morning every night. Like, you know what? This is not as glamorous as they make it sound out. So I got into sports public relations and marketing. Loved it, but it was just a job that, you're at every single event. You're working 80, 90 hours a week.
Mm.
You're not making any money. It was fun. You're in press boxes. You're running football games. You're dealing with TV and stuff. But I did that for 13 years, and I was just
Wow.
got completely burnt out. And then when I right in my early 30s, I was having a dinner with my friend, and I said, I got to get out of this profession. And he said, why don't you get into sales? And that's when that conversation started. And I owe it to him, because he said to me, he's like, you're in sales now. You're selling season tickets. You're selling stories to newspapers. You're asking alums for money. You're in sales now. You don't even know it. And he was right.
It's funny how many times these conversations, like people say, it's somebody else telling me what you're good at that is what prompts them to make a change or to start their own business. It's like other people are really can offer good insight into what your actual strengths are.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's, I always find it fascinating in life in general that, these little things that happen can have a big impact on your trajectory. If
Yeah.
I didn't have this conversation with him, who knows? Maybe I wouldn't have ended up in sales. I would have done something else. I have no idea. So it's like that movie Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow. It's like, you ever see that movie?
I don't think so.
That movie. So it's a great movie. It's about, she goes on the train platform, and half of the movie is about what happens when she gets on the train. And the other
Mm,
half of the movie is the doors close on her and she misses the train. And her life literally is completely different because she missed the train.
yeah, that's
And that's
crazy.
how life is.
Yeah.
you know Things happen that if you can be aware of these things that happen, you can be in a little more control of your life. But it's really cool how that works.
Do you think that that background in sports and stuff is what helps you with coaching now? Like what I think that, kind of what you're talking about here, these little journeys in life that we go on, it kind of helps build the person that we are today. And it's like, did that background help make it to where you're, maybe more passionate about the coaching process?
What that journey did was made me realize I was really good at managing people, and I was really good at public speaking,
Okay.
which I never knew. But I had to run press conferences and things, and I turned out that I actually love public speaking. Like, I know that goes against like the number one fear in humans is public speaking ahead of
Yeah.
death. And I I can roll out of bed and give a keynote. I love it. I can't get enough of it. And if someone said all you're going to do for the rest of your life is give a speech once a week, I would be a happy camper. That being said, that particular job where I had to run press conferences, run press box management, interview players and coaches, and deal with the media, I guess it made me realize I was good at talking to people. And then as I was going through my sales career and got good at it, and in some of the jobs I had, they would ask me to help some of the other reps. And that's when I started realizing I'm good at coaching too. I'm good at helping them figure out how to get better. So it was definitely a process.
What's
And it
next?
still is. I still learn
Yeah.
every single day.
Hey, that's the key. Never getting complacent, right? And actually trying to figure out how did you learn? Did you do a lot of like research or like reading these sales books or like self-help books? What helped you build these sales skills, or was it just by, kind of learning by fire? Like, I'm in it, this is who I am, and I'm just trying to help people.
Oh yeah, no, I consumed everything I could. I read every sales book out there. But what was resonating with me, and I remember going through the journey of thinking about how, what can I do about this? This is happening right now during a sales call. What can I do about it? And a lot of the stuff you read were just the typical objection handling techniques or
Mm-hmm.
closing techniques. Everything was a technique. And it turns sales reps into robots, which is why people don't like to talk to a salesperson. Like, for example, I remember having an aha moment in a Barnes and Noble once where I was like, when you get to the price, people always have anxiety. Well, why is that? And then I started thinking about it. Well, you know what? You get anxiety anytime you buy anything. You're on the line at Best Buy with a printer under your arm, you have a little bit of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
A story I tell that people laugh at all the time is like, you go shopping, food shopping, and you fill up your cart and you get online and you have anxiety. You're like, oh, this is going to be $300, $400. What do we do as human beings to alleviate the anxiety? We try to do something about it. So we take out the bag of chips and the candy bar and you put it on the side and we feel better. But you only took out $5, but you did something about the anxiety. So I started saying, how can I do something about the anxiety when someone's trying to purchase something from me? And that sort of just went into a process that I have at the end of a conversation. So it was really just stuff that organically grew when I was looking at the conversation and saying, this is what people are acting, this didn't work, or why didn't I make this sale? I would really self-evaluate. And then when I start doing research, I realize, oh, well, social proof should have worked there. I should have talked about, the other doctor, just like this doctor who bought, a bay window, or reciprocation, or whatever it is. Telling storytelling is a big thing. Now every time you shake a tree and someone training storytelling is out there. But before, 15 years ago, no one talked about stories at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized telling a story and making people imagine what it's like to own the product rather than just talking about the features of the product is much more powerful. And so I just learned as I went, and then backed it up when I did research. And this is a story. That's why teachers are so good, because they tell stories. Stories are what help people. Maybe you remember things and you buy more when you hear a story, as
What
an
do you,
example.
what do you think changed the dynamic of how people are, like you said, there's now these storytelling coaches or trainers. Was the sales process always the same, and the people, 20 or 30 years ago that were successful were doing these things? Or is it just that, through social media or technology, we've realized that there's new ways to actually capture attention for customers?
Yeah, I think it's changed across the board, because prior to the internet, the sales rep was in charge.
Mm,
You really, as a consumer, you really couldn't get information unless it was in a magazine or a
right.
billboard or television or an ad. So when you went to a car dealership, you were beholden to the sales rep to sell you, right? And half the time you didn't feel comfortable because you weren't sure if he or she was telling the truth. So once the internet came
Right.
and people started realizing that they could research, I call it, this is in my book as well, what people are now doing to protect themselves from salespeople, because they feel like they need to be protected, which is sad in and of itself, but they gather informational ammunition. They're like, I am going to know everything. For the most part, I'm going to have as much information as I can before this sales guy comes over here and tries to rip me off. That's the mindset for most people. 94% of all sales of things that people buy today start online. They start with research online. They look at Google reviews. They look at other customers, other competitors. They look at all of this stuff before you even walk in the door. So that is what is really changed and what's evolved. So the guys who sold before with the old Tom Hopkins ways, and this is, you got to do this, and you got to do features and benefits, then you got to do this closing technique, and you got to do trial closes, and all these silly things that they had back then, was because the person, the prospect, didn't have any information. Now all that stuff is irrelevant, because the guy's
Right.
looking at you like, dude, you're trying this technique on me and it's not going to work. I want to solve my problem. Tell me how you can solve my problem. So once the sales rep knows that and realizes I'm here just to give him some information and to help him or her, they're going to be, I call it the anti-salesperson. When you show up as a salesperson that they're not expecting, you're just going to sell more because you're like a breath of fresh air.
That
Really.
so then how in your process, a lot of the high pressure sales techniques and things like that, like you got to get someone to commit at that time, like, right, like
Yeah.
during that presentation. How do you, if you're taking a step back from the coercion, how do you handle someone that says, I need time or something like that? Is there still a follow-up process? How do you kind of teach people to handle that?
Well, first of all, as a company, you have to make a determination on whether you're going to be a one call close company or a two call close company. And let's say most window and roofing sales are one call close companies. They want to close the sale when you first meet with the customer, because that's the time where the emotion and the excitement is at its highest, when people are excited to do this. The problem is most reps get it wrong, where now the anxiety takes over. They didn't prepare the customer for the price properly. So therefore the customer will automatically say, sounds good, everything sounds great, let me think about it, or I got to get 3 more quotes. If that happens, you miss something along the way. You miss some sort of comfort level along the way. There's ways, and again, it's a whole training process that I would go through, but there's ways to get to the point where when that person sees the price, it looks comfortable and they expected it. It should be right around what they were expecting, but that is established well before you get to the price. If you wait to show them the price at the end and they have no idea what it's going to be, you're going to have a very tough time selling. So the whole funnel of getting them there to feel comfortable, and then there's ways to handle that. Now you're at the buying process. Now you're at, okay, I am actually going to say yes or no. And there's ways to alleviate that anxiety, like I was talking about. Now, if you decide I am going to be a 2-call close company, like if you sell siding, it's easier to be 2-call close because siding is a lot of choices. You got to think of colors and everything. So there's a process that I would have for that. This is how you present. This is what you're going to do. And then you set up the follow-up appointment from there. So there's ways to do it. You just have to make the determination what kind of company you want to be. Again, if you're a 1-call close company and they say no, or I got to think about it, yes, there's a follow-up process. Chances are, though, that the last number that I saw is when someone says no in the house in a 1-call close situation, you only have about a 3% chance of getting back in there. Only 3% of people buy after that. They're going to buy from someone else on that initial visit.
Interesting. So the thought is then if you get to that end and they're wanting other options, it's because you screwed up something along that process. And that's the thing that you're trying to teach people is do this process first. So you don't even have to worry about these techniques to force someone to close.
Yeah. If you have the proper conversation, if you ask the proper questions, you're going to get to the end, and it's literally going to be, they're going to make the decision to do business with you, or they're going to say, I can't afford it.
Right.
Those are really the only 2 answers you want. If they say, I got to think about it, or I got to get other options, you miss something somewhere along the way to make them feel comfortable with you, because that's the only reason they're saying that.
Yeah.
Or you didn't prepare them for the price the right way. So they went, whoa, that's 20,000. I was expecting it to be 10. I got to think about this, even though they like you. But if they were prepared for 20,000, or even better, they were prepared for 25 and you show 20, they were like, all right, wow, okay, that's really good price. And then you just got to get them to say yes, and that's it.
So what's next for you and for your businesses? I know you said you want to write a novel, which isn't really related to the business, but you've done all these things. You're coaching people. You've written one book. What's next for you?
So there'll be a second 7 Secrets book coming out, but it's going to be very niche down. It's going to be very specific to the in-home selling market. It's interesting that I've found, I've spoken to so many reps and everything. There's not a lot of, there's a handful of people that sell, that do coaching within that niche directly, but there's not a lot of books about it, and there are not a lot of podcasts about it. So in my hopper right now, I'm rebranding my podcast to talk to just that niche, to contractors and in-home salespeople. Just that'll be my audience, and I'm going to write a book just for them. The 7 Secrets to Selling in Home, or something like that. I don't know the title yet. And I have a feeling, like, I've always wanted the 7 Secrets concept to be sort of a series, the 7 Secrets to doing whatever I'm going to write about. So those are some of the bigger things I I have planned, and getting on more stages. That's the other
Yeah.
thing. Everybody needs a keynote speaker or a workshop presenter, I'm right here. Hit me up.
No, I think that's interesting because like I have a home service business, and it's like there's a lot of, like you said, sales books, but nothing targeting that specific, that
Right.
area of, hey,
Yeah.
you're in someone's home talking about something that they obviously need. That's why you're there.
That's why you're there, right?
So that should be good.
Yeah.
I can
So
see that.
that'll be the next one, which I've just started the outline on. So I don't know when it'll be out, but that's my next project.
So where can people find more about you and what you got going on?
So my website's the best place. It's allanger.com. So it's AL and then LANGER.com. If you can go there, you go to my book. But if you go on Amazon, just type in Allan Langer. It's ALLAN Langer. My book will come up. And if you want to get a book, it's also in Kindle, and I did an audio book as well where I read the book. So that's
Nice.
sold a lot of those as well, because a lot of my target audience has a lot of windshield time. They're driving around all over the place, so they listen.
Hey, it's however they can consume it best, right? It doesn't matter.
Exactly right.
No, man. Hey, appreciate all the insight today, and you taking the time to kind of walk the listeners through your process and your story.
No problem. It was a lot of fun, Jordan, and thanks for having me on.